if we spin this on its head a little bit, what I'm starting to see, and certainly conversations that I've had with some of our customers, is people are they're quite worried, and they're almost burning themselves out to try and get up to date with where AI is today.
That needle now gradually beginning to swing towards AI acceptance, AI integration. People's stress levels are dropping.
I use a lot of AI also myself. I mean, I spend a lot of time both with Gemini and with ChatGPT, like just what about this? What about this? What about this? This is interesting. Like something like I read a blog post, there's something here, or like 2 blog posts, put them in together. Like, what do you think about this?
We need to look at the problems that we currently have or what is becoming problems for us. And that is where AI really revolves around those topics.
Today's episode is part 2 of our discussion with Brian Madden, Citrix futurist, and Stefan Stickley, our AI internal specialist. In the last episode, we looked at how AI is moving beyond chatbots, from self-prompting and multi-agent teamwork to real-world examples of how it's changing workplaces and the way we think about tech. In today's episode, we're zeroing in on what all that actually means for the way that we use computers day to day. We talk about AI as a kind of co-worker living inside your existing systems, how virtual desktops and guardrails keep running things smoothly, and how IT teams can manage AI agents just like they're managing people. It's a look at the productivity boost, the culture shift, and what it's really going to feel like when AI is just another member of the team. Hope you enjoy.
I actually do think there is a bit of an imaginary needle that's slowly swaying towards this is human, this is AI. And we've touched on this in the past between us, but I think Citrix and other RDP solutions really pose a tool set that exists that will allow that workspace innovation to really take root and take hold. The ability to have a session, use Citrix, see within what that AI is doing as if you would any other worker, any other remote solution, and then to be able to set up an AI within a virtual desktop, a VDI infrastructure, to then be able to then automate tasks. And I do think there's a bit of a needle, and it's slowly moving more towards AI, less towards human. But with that, people are saying, okay, what's going to happen to my job? But I think really the question I'm asking myself is, how much more productivity can I produce now? And what I'm beginning to see for myself is that my productivity level is rising and my stress level is decreasing with a lot of these tools as they begin to innovate. So the more and more as we begin to lean into that agentic workspace AI, I think there's going to be a huge comeback for everyday employees, everyday people, as their stress levels begin to decrease. And we are beginning to see that. And I do think one of the best gauges of AI will be, how stressed am I about my job when I need to do something routine, everyday task? How well can a regular person begin to utilize these tools to make their everyday life easier, not just their personal life, but their work life? And I think by looking into people's stress levels, engagement levels, how they're, right now we see there's something called TKI conflict mode. Some people shut down against it. Some people are aggressive towards it. And as we begin to see people's conflicts with AI change, I think that's where we'll begin to see the needle really switch from people pushing against AI to people bringing it in. And I think as well as the tooling, but also the culture needs to shift as well towards it in terms of an acceptance. And I think by looking at how people are engaging with that from an emotional level, we will see how that, I think that will be the true indicator of real world progress within this. We've seen things progress in the past in terms of automation, and people's engagement with it has been poor. And when it's poor, people move on. But we're not seeing this with AI. We're seeing, my grandma of all people was telling me the other day that she was using ChatGPT. She needed to quilt a pattern. She could not quilt this pattern, and none of her books referenced it. She didn't know what it was, but all she did was take a picture of it. She uploaded it to ChatGPT, and it gave her an article for how to quilt this pattern and instructions. And she's coming up for 81 years old at this. And she's utilizing AI in her day-to-day life. And I think that needle now gradually beginning to swing towards AI acceptance, AI integration. People's stress levels are dropping. She was stressed that she had made a promise for a blanket that she couldn't produce. AI then enabled the production of this. And I think it's that increase in productivity that we will then see more push in the workplace for agentic AI. And with that, I think then comes the OPEX and CAPEX to make these tools a reality for us.
Yeah,
because it is expensive.
That's a fantastic story about your grandmother. There's a lot of really important points, I think, in what you were talking about there. You know, we can talk about like productivity, for example, and productivity is another term that like it means different things to different people. Like it has has an economic definition, but like when people talk about it, is it you know, producing more work as an employee? Is it producing the same amount of work but better quality? Is it producing the same amount of work with less time to allow you to do other work? And this is not a decision that every company needs to make. It might be for every task and every project and every person. There's a different way that they sort of realize and implement like these productivity enhancements that they have. The bigger point here that what you bring up is when you start to implement AI into companies, you know, we talk about end user computing and that's through the lens of IT. The conversation really has to be larger than just IT. I mean, executive leadership, HR, you know, legal, compliance, because from HR standpoint, I mean, it's so important to like think about what this is doing to our employees and our workers. And I don't just mean from a standpoint of like, oh, is my job going to go away? But like, let's say you had some easy tasks that were sort of like didn't require your full brain, and you have hard tasks and your job was like half easy and half difficult. Well, hey, AI does all the easy tasks. Great. So now my job is only the hard tasks? I mean, I need a break. Like you all know in your day, you've got some meetings that take a lot and you need some you can kind of coast through. Sometimes you need to like just walk around and like just clear your brain. And you can't, as a human, we can't just take away all the easy, relaxing stuff and just like load every day's schedule full of all these difficult things. You know, if I was writing 4 TPS reports a week and they take a lot of time and a lot of energy, and now AI can help me and I'm supposed to write 8, like, do I have the energy to do 8 per week? I don't know. And so I'm not saying no, I'm not saying yes. I'm saying it depends on the situation. Everything's different. So this needs to be part of the conversation around how like AI is really brought into the organization. And this is much bigger than just an IT conversation. You know, now we're IT professionals, so we are not like, we should not be leading that conversation. We should be, you know, partnering with our, you know, HR colleagues and sort of like figuring out what this means. And there's a lot bigger conversation there. But you know, because this also, to your point, it gets into like career progression. The way I look at it is like we're already seeing like AI can do the easy jobs, as they say. But that's someone like if you come right out of university into the working world, you do the easy job, and now AI can do the easy job, and so now you don't need the university human worker, you know, to do this job. And as AI gets better and better, the tasks that AI can do keep on getting like more and more and more. And so it's like we as human workers who are working with the AI, it's almost like we're progressing in our careers. Like imagine, you know, you come out of university, you're a task worker. After a few years, you get promoted to the like junior manager, and now you manage a bunch of task workers. After a few years, you get promoted to like a senior manager. Now you manage junior managers who they manage task workers, then you're a director, et cetera. So as you go higher and higher in your career, you're less like task managing and delegating tasks versus like broad business concepts to like escalation, strategy, that sort of thing. And so as the AI gets more capable, also what you're telling it, like before, you know, if the AI wasn't very good, I would say, go to my LinkedIn. Okay, open a browser, click here, click here, click here. Now do this. Now look at that. And now I can say, check this on LinkedIn. And maybe in the future, I can just ask like, how is my social post doing these days? And it knows that means LinkedIn and et cetera.
Yeah.
So as we move through that, like up and down, you know, that's also needs to involve HR and like the business leadership to understand like, what are we assigning? Like, how are our human workers, you know, like, what are they doing? How are they thinking about it? How are we measuring? How are we rewarding? All that sort of gets shaken up. And that's not an IT problem. I mean, IT is going to facilitate giving the AI is a good place to work. But the company at large has to really look at this, and it's it's deeper than just, will AI take my job?
Yeah. And I think just to expand on that as well, recently there was a news article that said there was something like 92 million jobs by 2030 are going to be lost. But by the same token, they also came in and said, actually, that sounds really negative, but there's also 170 million new jobs that are going to come into the workforce. And that could be things like AI ethics. So there could be an AI ethics officer that starts to come on board, and, an AI human resource officer, and things that actually we start to depend on and work with in the workplace. So it's an interesting piece, that.
Yeah. There's an article recently released by Anthropic about whereby they did a bit of a social experiment on this exact topic, whereby they asked, could Claude run a small shop? And they made the mistake to do it over in April. And some of the things that they did encounter were that it wasn't, despite having full access and a full range of tools and tooling, it still struggled with, despite having the context that it was April Fool's, that interpretation with the customers, that organic flow. And I do think that while some jobs will go, it will then create other jobs surrounding this new tooling. Like if, let's say, a shop was AI automated, who's going to maintain that infrastructure? Who's going to be checking that everything is working correctly? How will that impact local residences? Will that create engagement? So you will need an engagement officer. If it's a big enough chain, you will probably need a person per region to check engagement with that store, with that brand. And these jobs don't exist now, but they will. And I think AI will facilitate regular people who aren't necessarily skilled in some of these fields being able to be upskilled to provide some of these resources as well. So I think whereas people say, oh, I'm not a techie today, but with AI, and I can, from my own experience, being able to use AI to augment things that I can't do physically, AI will enable them to do things just as it has done for me back in 2018. It will then provide them with the tools and resources to then upskill themselves.
Yeah, I agree fully. Because we're technologists and we're like IT professionals, we look at everything through that lens, and there will be a role for us, managing and securing the AI as workers. And so do we have the guardrails and like DLP, and does have a safe, like a secure spot to work, and like cost management and all these kinds of things. So yes, that will exist, but the users of AI are using human interfaces. It's like chatting and talking today. It might be buds, who knows what it is in the future. It doesn't matter. But the point is that all these technology transformations create lots of new jobs and new opportunities. Like, it's a well-worn trope, but you heard that like automated banking machines thought was going to like kill the bank teller job, but it turned out there's more bank tellers today than there was back then, because of, there's a lot of reasons to go into this, including changing what a bank is, and they go to more places, and people like use banks for different things, and every story you hear about that, it just comes down to humans are really not good at imagining a theoretical future that they don't see and live every day. And so it may be that a lot of traditional jobs are, we don't need as much anymore. But think about if AI can increase productivity, and again, I said it's there's a loaded word, but if you can do everything, like if I can generate 20% more work, 30% more work, like what I look at it now, my role at Citrix is I'm an individual contributor. I think I do the work of what a team of 3 or 4 people would have done, 5 years ago. And I do some things are like high brain activities, some are low brain activities. Like there's a lot there, but I'm just doing a lot more. That's leading to more conversations and maybe leading us to go in more directions that we wouldn't have done otherwise, which now end up hiring more people to do these other sorts of things that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for AI that didn't. So like, I don't have a team of 3 people, but this other team of 5 people might create because of the work that I was doing. And so you see that in like these micro levels, like all throughout society and through like knowledge work. And I think we can enter a world where there is sort of more things for more people to do to support some of the growth we get from AI. It's just really, really hard to truly envision what that is. I mean, it's like, when like automation, like when robotics came into the world, or like when the loom came into the world, how did you tell these people, don't worry, there's going to be product marketing managers and you will be fine. Like, what is the concept of a knowledge worker? Explain a knowledge worker in like 1880 when electrification was entering factories. Like, it does not compute yet. there's a lot more workers today than there was in the 1880s.
Absolutely. And I think this is where we're lucky to have particularly in our field, working with Citrix, yourself being at Citrix, to be able to facilitate yourself as a futurist, I think grants us a looking glass into what might be. And then it's a very interesting position that you find yourself in. But as an observer, as a spectator to you performing that role, it is equally as interesting to see. Having read your blogs and spoken to you personally, some of the insights that you have provided only to come true with no prior indication of coming true weeks or months later. It's wild. The ability to see or speak to somebody who has the resource to spend, okay, what is going to happen? Incredibly fascinating.
I think you really nailed it right there. The privilege that I have is I have the time and the resources to spend calories investing and thinking about what this future is going to look like. I have a list of resources. We'll put this in the show notes. I'll send it to you, Chris, of like all the blogs that I read and all the podcasts that I listen to, and like the people I follow. I'm lucky enough that I have like 5 or 6 hours per week to listen to podcasts. Within my role at Citrix, I talk to probably 40 or 50 different people within Citrix on a pretty regular basis, like one-on-ones every month or two, about like what's going on, what are you hearing, what are you thinking about, our engineers, our product managers, all of our executive leadership, and even outside of our COO and CIO and CISO and CHRO, not just tech folks, salespeople. So I'm lucky enough to have a lot of time to spend on this. I use a lot of AI also myself. I mean, I spent a lot of time both with Gemini and with ChatGPT, like just what about this? What about this? What about this? This is interesting. This is interesting. Like something like I read a blog post, I'm like, there's something here, or like 2 blog posts, put them in together. Like, what do you think about this? And just kind of chatting about it and just sparking ideas. And so it's something that sort of, if you can put the time into thinking about this deeply, a lot of stuff kind of becomes like apparent of where the direction is going. And for those, and then I'm trying to share the best parts, because obviously not everyone has the time that I'm fortunate enough to have spending on this. So that's what I try to put into, to bring to podcasts like this, to put into the blog, to put into my talks and that sort of thing. We're just scratching the surface of where this is going to. I mean, we went from it's really a fun time. I think, like I said, like for me, my path to work at Citrix, Stefan, you and I met in November last year. I kind of like laid out, here, because at that time, for the past 2 or 3 years, I've been really into like just interested in this AI thing and how it impacts stuff. And so I've been like listening and thinking about how it will impact the future of work. And, by November last year, like, not quite 1 year ago, it was pretty clear to me on like what this progression would look like. I didn't have that like 7-stage, like I didn't have that like formalized yet, but in my mind, it kind of like, well, it's probably going to be this, then this, then this, then this. Yep. And in fact, I had that sort of idea in my head and I'm like, okay, so I want to do this more. Like what's interesting here? Like what's the most interesting play? And I really came down to it about like, well, AI in the workplace is going to have to use the same tools. It's going to have to use the same workspaces, whether it's a Windows desktop or a browser. It's going to need access to the same apps, the same guardrails. And I'm like, man, like I was kind of looking around like Citrix is actually like pretty well positioned here. I sort of wonder what they're doing. So then I reached out to Sean and like folks I knew there, and kind of one thing led to another, and was able to join them to sort of help articulate and like discover the stories and what can happen here. And it sort of occurred to me that what we've all been doing as IT professionals in end user computing is exactly the right thing. Yeah. Like I was really happy about that. Like we're not all gonna be it's not dire for us. Like, AI will need to be managed. It'll need to be secure. It'll need to be understood. To your point, you were mentioning earlier, like it's using our computer and desktop, so we can like do session recording. We can look at it. We can share videos. We can understand where it worked, where it didn't work. Like, it's all the same, like management security systems. And so that actually made me like really feel good about, even though this future is like, I'm looking at kind of what's happening, where it's going. But at the end of the day, like companies that have knowledge workers, they have the same requirements, compliance, regulations, work output, all these kinds of things. That's the world that we've been in for 30 years. And so part of it is, work is still going to be a thing, even if the way that happens changes. A lot of the like core requirements we have today are still going to exist in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because if we spin this on its head a little bit, what I'm starting to see, and certainly conversations that I've had with some of our customers, is people are they're quite worried, and they're almost burning themselves out to try and get up to date with where AI is today. I'm guilty of it a little bit. I spent 8 hours hard coding an agentic AI to keep my kids' Minecraft servers up to date. I think my personal return on investment is like 2 to 3 years at this point. But have you guys got any advice to people who are sat there going, well, this is really overwhelming. Where should I start?
I think whenever AI comes up as a topic to a business, the first question isn't one of, what can AI do for me today? Or what can AI do for me tomorrow? I think that's the wrong question to be asking. I think it's a case of, okay, what tasks now are human tasks? And you put those to one side. You need to differentiate those as current human tasks. And then you need to say, okay, so there's a new project emerging and we need to look into data analysis around this. That's when the AI topic really comes into play. And it starts out as a few seeds for a business. And we need to say, okay, so you want to analyze this. Okay, well, Power BI. Power BI has Copilot in there. Can Copilot then begin to interpret that data within Power BI? And I think it really starts out as a case of, we need to look to vendors and see what they're offering around the tasks that you wish to complete today, not what people do already today. As we spoke about earlier on, agentic AI using of workspaces is something that is on the horizon. We are seeing things, to quote you, Brian, drip by drip. It is coming in there. But really the real question is, what can the existing tool set do that we already have that's matured and developed, MPC and CP? And then how can vendors provide, or are they providing those protocols? And can we integrate that into new and upcoming workflows? Because once you begin to integrate them into upcoming workflows, you can then begin to integrate backwards. And really, it's more of an approach to the problem as a problem, but not trying to shoehorn it into old problems. And I think what people need to realize is AI is both here and hasn't arrived yet. The version of what AI people think it is yet to arrive. HAL 9000, Skynet, that isn't here. If it ever does become a thing, that's a problem for future us. But today's us, we need to look at the problems that we currently have, or what is becoming problems for us. And that is where AI really revolves around those topics.
In Chris's question about like what can sort of people listening do to get started and like what should do, and I like what you're saying about, tying it back to practical problems. For me, everyone's journey is different. For me personally, it's hard for me to learn something hypothetically. I have to have like a real problem. Like I can't learn Python for the sake of learning Python. I have a project I want to do, and Python's the right language to use. So then I'll learn Python to make that project. Yeah. And I think the same is true with AI. So first of all, just using it a lot is the first start. Like, just even if you think it can't do this, if it can't help, just getting comfortable with using the tools. Pick, ChatGPT or Claude or OpenAI, whatever you want to use, or Gemini, it doesn't matter. And I also say, like, I don't worry as much about trying to learn future things. Like, oh, the future is going to be agents, I should learn agents. Boy, by the time agents kind of explode in popularity, the way that you would interface with them and interact with them is going to be so different. Like, so today you might have to like program and tie together and do all these crazy workflows to sort of stitch it all together and make it work, which in 6 months won't be a thing. Like it's like when ChatGPT first came out and everyone was talking about prompt engineering, and now prompt engineering, you don't have to. Like the models sort of like re-engineer their own prompts before they process them.
Yeah.
So there are techniques, like obviously the more you tell ChatGPT, the better. If you just give it a request like, what do you think of this? Well, how do you even answer that question? There's a million different ways. Say, hey, I want you to like play the role of my coworker, and I'm going to send you a report, and I want you to look at like, is this realistic? What do you think about competition? What, just give it a little bit more guidance, like you would give any human guidance. And then you're like, oh, if I give it more guidance, it can produce better answers for me. So you like learn that and experience it. So to me, it almost doesn't matter like what you do, what AI you do, what your goals are. It's just like, just start kind of using it and bring it into your sort of like daily life, and it'll sort of emerge like in the little areas where it might be good for you. The one last thing I'll say is a little advice pellet, I guess, is if you can, the paid models are better than the free models. And even though it might be the same model, like it might be GPT 4.0, and that's free, N plus, N pro, there's a bunch of different parameters on the back end, like context windows, how much time it has to think, how many tokens it can allocate towards like reasoning. The details of all it don't exactly matter, but the point is that even though it's all the same model, if you can at least like scrape together that $20 a month, even if you have to pay for it personally, just to get into their paid tier, you're going to have more access to more models, and the models will be able to think deeper and hold more context, and are a little bit more capable. So I would caution people, like, don't use the free version and then say, oh, this AI is not ready yet, because it might just be that free version doesn't have the resources allocated to it to do everything that you want.
This is why I think your blogs are particularly worth reading, because your approach is very well tailored towards everyday people, not just EUC users, but people who also are just looking to break into the AI space as well.
That's a good observation. Yeah, because what I'm blogging about is kind of where this is going and how it's impacting work and knowledge work. I'm not specifically writing about EUC. I'm not specifically writing about Citrix. And, obviously everything I'm writing, you can like kind of connect the dots with how this applies to EUC. I mean, really, use ChatGPT for this. Take all the blog posts, or just point it at Citrix, point it at my blog page and say, hey, read all these, and what does it mean for this? So like, if you have a specific question about anything, throw all the blog posts in there, throw the links to YouTube videos in there, like use Google Notebook LM, something like that, and like add the blogs, add the videos, and then you can say, well, how would this impact this? Well, hey, at our company, we're using this. How would this play? And even though I'm not talking about like a specific product or use case, there's probably enough in there in the thinking that then ChatGPT can take that and frame itself. And so you could almost create a custom GPT that was like now you can actually collect the writings of the various bloggers who you like. I do that myself. So I've got that list of blogs that so I'll share with you that I follow, and I pull all those into ChatGPT, and I've got custom like projects in GPT set up for that, and then I can sort of like ask my advisory console, which they don't even know they're on my advisory console, and I put myself in there too, because I want like I got like 6 or 7 people that are in there, and all the blogs they do that really connect with me. Like I used to like save posts on LinkedIn that were good. Now I just like take that post and copy it into this GPT project. So It's like building the library of like things that I think are good, and then I can ask questions against that library. And it's not asking like, it's not like, oh, was this question answered in the library and what did they say? It's more like, here's all the things I'm interested in and the people who I think are interesting or the way that they think about stuff. So how might these people think in this way think about this thing over here that I ask about? And that's been very powerful for me. And that's available to every single person. And I don't want to share mine because I don't have to. I want to encourage all of you to build your own. And start with like the stuff that you all are doing at Access. Like, I mean, really, you pull your stuff in there, pull the thought leaders that you like in there. It is very possible to get like very expert level sort of, it's not opinions. It's like you can converse with this. You can ask it to like gut check things. These are like very sort of cool things you can do with this based on, random people on the internet whose, worldviews are sort of aligned with yours.
Love that.
Well, sometimes don't align with you, so can even give you an opinion outside of your traditional echo chamber, which I think is a very valuable point, is that AI of old, 4 years or maybe 4 months ago, would have inherently agreed with you. But now AI is beginning to stoke up real thought and real challenging opinions. And so I think that's a really good point. And just to build off that quickly, AI is going to enable you to find topics or find articles you may not have considered, something that you would have read or something that you may not have understood. And it may challenge the way that you think, but it's going to challenge you in a way that will inherently allow you to be upskilled via using this AI. As we spoke about earlier on, this is just another tool that will allow you to be a more skilled individual.
This is a really, really good point. I also created a GPT called Bizarro Brian. So GPT, for those who don't know, this is a thing from ChatGPT. You can sort of create imagine like a custom ChatGPT where you give it instructions and you say like, okay, I want you to play this role, act like this, act like this. You can you don't have to be a programmer. You just type it in English. If you use Google Gemini, it's called Gems. Probably all the platforms have something similar. So, Bizarro Superman, like the opposite Superman. So I created Bizarro Brian, and the custom instructions for that are like, I want you, anything I drop in here, I want you to address and think critically. Am I blind spots? What am I missing? Give me an contrarian, viewpoint. And it's nice because I tell it I'm going to drop things in here and you just do this. So I don't have to say, hey, ChatGPT, I wrote this blog post. What do you think? So I write the blog post and I just literally drop it in there. It creates a new conversation in that Bizarro Brian and it spits it all out. I don't have ChatGPT write my blogs, but I will brainstorm to make sure I'm thinking of all angles and sort of use it in that way. And that's a way that people can use this stuff today, even if you are not an engineer or an AI expert. That's where I say just start using it. Every email you send, every presentation you make at work, email you write to your boss, just drop it in there and be like, what am I missing? What should I think about? And over time you'll the responses might not be right. No, I wish it would think more this way. So you go back into the system prompt of your custom GPT and tweak it or add something to it. And so over time you end up with these GPTs you've created, which are very personal to you and are really, really good. By the way, you can share GPTs publicly. So it runs in your own instance, burns your own tokens or time or credits or whatever. But lots of people have done these. So there's one of my old coworkers at Tech Target, Bridget Botello, just shared one on LinkedIn today about journalist researcher. I'm gonna drop an article in here. I want you to look up the sources, find this, is it, fact check it. Paul Reitzer has one called a co-CEO. So if you're a CEO of a company, you drop stuff in there and it helps you brainstorm about this stuff. So these custom GPTs are publicly available. Probably LinkedIn has 1 billion of them. You can sort of find people and just start playing with them and see what's possible. It's a very, very cool thing today.
I mean, I think, wow. What a fantastic example of what GPT can actually do for everyday people. I mean, to be fair, my use cases for GPTs and AI agents, vastly different to normal people or regular people. But for people who work in AI or people who work in MSPs or the tech sector, what I'm beginning to find is a way that they can really help is collecting knowledge bases together. I mean, for me, I am a documentation fiend. Everything that happens is documented to the tooth and nail with drawn imagery. I get out the Apple Pencil at work. I'm going to be drawing a diagram, and it's all documented. And what I've been able to do is take how I write my notes, write my own procedures internally, write the things I've encountered through my professional career that have been technically challenging, feed that into an AI, and then I can then use that to redigest that information into guides for people who work within my team. So then they can understand that information in a more digestible fashion for technical challenges that they may encounter. So one thing I've personally found it to be incredible for is making my jumbled mess of notes an interpreting and cohesive set of instructions.
You bring up so many good points because in my the 7 stages of AI adoption, the first phase I call it prompt and paste. That's how we all first started using ChatGPT. Like send it a simple question, it gets back a simple answer, kind of like one shot and done.
Yeah.
The second phase is also around using ChatGPT or any LLM, but in a much deeper and more profound way. Because what happened over time is, ChatGPT, the models improved, so it got like smarter, or whatever word you want to use there, but it got bigger context windows. It got the ability to like understand like audio, video, images, more file types. And these context windows being larger, I mean, Google Gemini has a 3 million token context window. And now there's some controversy around that. It doesn't matter. Read the internet. But the point is, it's huge. It can hold like 5,000 pages of printed text in its memory, like at once. So now you can drop in like, okay, all your project documentation for the past 12 years of projects, which is 1,200 pages. You can drop in like this internet report, which is 450 pages. You can drop in like all these things into a single conversation. You can drop in like best practices on writing, how to make good documentation, FAQs, all that in there, and then kind of work with, the current things you're working on. So like take all this and now help me form my own documentation. By the way, you could make all that into a custom gem or custom GPT, so it's reusable to use it for all your stuff. Like I just think about, in IT, like in the EUC world back in the 2000s, we had all these like automation frameworks about like auto documenting things and like documentation scripts. You can sort of like take those scripts and put them in and then like drop in raw logs. I mean, it's the amount of stuff you can do with different data sources in different formats, like log files, instructions, videos, and have it kind of like synthesize across all that is extremely, extremely powerful. So even though it might seem like, oh, this is the same GPT that's been around for like almost 3 years, like the industry is stagnated. It's like, no, the GPT today is not the same. That's like saying the cars are the same today as they were, 100 years ago. And it's like, they are not. And we're seeing that too. So I think it's to your use case, like people who have their way of doing things for years and years and decades, you can leverage all that work that you've invested over the decades to help accelerate you moving forward. I'm not saying this writes it for you. I'm saying like use this as a starting point, brainstorm against it, help fathom, find ideas. If you love writing, you should keep on writing. Don't let GPT write for you. But GPT can be a thought partner to help you like structure your thoughts that you're going to write about later.
Love that. And I think just bringing it back as well to a build or buy conversation, which is always quite an interesting one with our customers. There's a lot of noise around building your own AI agents from scratch. Do you think that's smart exploration, or are teams walking into kind of complexity that they don't necessarily need to do?
What's most important to me is that everyone does work that they find really interesting. So if the idea of building an agent and like really like, going into like I'm going to flow mode and like really dig into this and build this agent to solve this problem, and I'm going to spend like 2 days back to back working on it. Man, if you're activated in that way, 100% you should do that. Yeah. The idea of building your own agent has no interest to you. That's fine. You don't need to. AI is such a broad topic. Like there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of different ways you can approach it. And I really encourage people to like approach it in the way that is most interesting to you, because that's going to like be the most sticky, and you're going to like be like happy while you're sort of exploring with this kind of stuff. I feel like, AI agents means a lot of different things. The technology is evolving quickly. Like if you have a specific problem to solve and you feel like the technology of agents today can solve that problem, and that problem is worth solving to you, then go for it. But if it's arbitrary, like, oh, I should learn agents, I don't know, it just changes too fast. I will say that there's this, because AI is so new, again, I get it, it's not really new, yada, yada, but like for all intents and purposes, for most of us, AI happened when ChatGPT was publicly released. Because this is so new, that it's just evolving so quickly, the tools are evolving quickly, like everything is happening so fast. So it's like anything, if you spend 3 months building something, it might just be an inbox feature in v.next. So, I don't chase these things unless you want to, and then you get good knowledge. But like all these people, I mean, most enterprise software we buy or we access as a subscription service, like from other people, like we use Salesforce, we use Microsoft Office. a lot of people are starting to like trying to build things with AI where I'm like, that's just gonna be a product you buy in like a year.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got to build this like custom enterprise search and it's going to search these things. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you can, but does that take you 6 months? Like, it's probably a product that you just pay someone else for, and they're the experts on that and they work on it all the time. So I feel like we're just so early where there's a lot more sort of like raw tools and potential in this space than there are sort of finished, polished products. I'm not chasing down, like, I'm not like trying to build things just for the sake of like, I must build this again, unless you want to.
Yeah.
If you don't want to build things, use ChatGPT as a brainstorming partner to help find if they exist now. By the way, ChatGPT does scheduled tasks. So like, and how do you do a scheduled task? You just ask it to do this on a schedule, using one of the 03 or 04 models, and it just does that. So it can say like, oh, well, I'm trying to find this product that does all this stuff. It's not here yet. Can you just check like once a week and let me know if so? And once a week you'll get a little alert on your phone. Bink! Hey, I checked. No new changes. So like, as I said, I think you can really. I don't think you have to build things today, like unless you have a real need. Like people are trying to build everything. I mean, there's famous stories about, I think it was Bloomberg, spent like $10 million building some custom GPT that like analyzed, that had all their custom data in it and could help analysis. And then like the next version of ChatGPT came out and it just did everything that they had and it was for free and available to everybody. So it's just, I don't know. Don't build it for builder's sake. Like just go down that path only if you really want to.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a very different swing at this because that's very much a call out to me. Feel very much called out. I love building this stuff from scratch. I think mostly because my background has been in from 2015, 2016, when LLMs didn't exist and they were all neural networks that we were having to build and then do generational reiterations of it for training data. You had to build it all yourself. The fact that now you don't need to build the tooling for that interfacing. Back in 2018, you had to write the code yourself to use a mouse, write the code yourself to be able to use a controller to be able to interface with something. Not needed anymore. Even if you don't buy the product, there are open source products out there. There are communities thriving off of this innovation, and they want people to use their tooling. Get on GitHub, get on Google, ask Google Gemini, find me the latest product that will do what I need it to do. Even if you don't buy it from a vendor, there are free products out there. The community itself is both driven on closed source and open source. And there's a big debate, even within OpenAI, do we open source our models? But from a business looking to build or buy, I think there is a fundamental cost of OPEX versus CAPEX. If you spend time to host your own LLM, to build your own AI infrastructure, the front cost is going to be huge, and the industry moves at such a pace that you may buy two H100s today, but they may be incapable of running the models tomorrow, or your older hardware, which we are now beginning to see with things like Google Diffusion, older models are becoming far more capable at lower values. Dumber models are processing things quicker on lesser hardware more effectively. So the software infrastructure that surrounds things are beginning to innovate at a pace that is beginning to keep toe with AI innovation. The fact that you can download something like LM Studio and host an open source model locally and interact with it for free and they're not comparable results. What Brian said is entirely correct, that paying for a service far outstrips the capacity of something that is free or you can host yourself.
Yep.
But that does give you an insight into what build would look like, but also the limitations of what build are. So if you are thinking build because you think the OPEX is too high, well, you can begin to see what a zero CapEx would actually begin to look like. And it really varies. I mean, we could see a day when self-hosting is better than OpenAI and Gemini.
Yeah. The point you made, like, I think you validated my exact thing. You started like, I love building, so I want to build. And that's what I'm saying. 100%. If you love building, go build. There's so much potential out there. I think another really good point that you raise is we talked at the beginning about like the A2A, the agent to agent protocol, and MCP, model context protocol. One of a few big changes are going to happen in the future, largely speaking about these models. And I think the two biggest changes are, number one, these like super models, like the GPT, like massive, 100 billion parameter, whatever these things, like the Geminis, the GPTs, the Groks, open, whatever. These models that can do everything. And they're trying to build towards like general intelligence and super intelligence. Those will exist. They will like work on new science and that kind of stuff, but not every model needs to do that. I listened to a podcast that was looking at like health. They built a very small model that does like health. It's like basically like a doctor, and it can actually score higher on like the doctor evaluation exam things. It can score higher than ChatGPT can because it was only trained on like doctor data, and it doesn't need to know, I don't know, the history of the Paris Olympics and the Cleveland Browns. So like it, and it can run on a Raspberry Pi, by the way. So like you will have these very, very small models that are very specialized and will be better in their own area. Maybe if they're not better than the overall models, but they're much smaller, they run faster, they're cheaper, and then you're able to run those like on devices in your own environment. I think that networks of lots of little models all talking to each other is going to be like really big in the future. The other thing I'll say, just to close the loop on this, is I said there's two big changes in these models moving forward. The other one is we're not going to access these models via text, like as the only interface. That's like saying, like, hey, when home computers first came out, well, the UI's evolved. The first was switches and LEDs, then it was text, that was like DOS prompts, and then it evolved into all these other interfaces. The models will too. So you already are seeing models you can talk to. They'll be vision, screen, talk, buds, floating, texting, typing, whatever UI you want will exist. And don't think about like these models, the only interface being text going in and text going out. It's just like how we had there might be what the inputs are your screen data, the outputs are mouse movements, like these will evolve to the scenario that we need over time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think those are really good points. I know obviously we just closed it, but a great example of what you're saying about the interface changing is for myself. We spoke about it before. I personally have some motor function issues. AI has enabled me to do context-aware input shaping through things like my mouse cursor or through the games that I play to be able to facilitate accessibility for me. And that is my driving focus behind AI. And I think as businesses begin to work around the availability, or as the general tool sets begin to grow for that input, I think what we will then see is tools become more available to everyday people to be able to interact with AI that look different. That isn't a keyboard, that isn't a mouse, but is perhaps thumb, gesturing, or maybe even, God forbid, maybe thinking to an AI, through machine interfaces. It becomes an augmentable implant. That's way out there, cyberpunk-esque, but we don't know what they're going to look like. But what we do know is that they won't take place inside a chat prompt forever.
And what is here today? So there's a great memo. You can look this up. OpenAI it just hired a new CEO for applications. So that'll let Sam Altman kind of focus more on research. And her name is Fiji Simo. She was the CEO of Instacart. And just in the last week or so, she sent a memo to all OpenAI employees. And this is public also, about go team, I'm excited to be here. But she kind of laid out the important things that OpenAI is working on and the important things, the important tenets of AI moving forward. And I think maybe the first thing she mentioned really was talking about how AI can very personally adapt to maximize our strengths and help fill in gaps we have in the way that we work and think and function and process. And so whatever that is, in your case, you talked about it's helping to compensate for different motor neural capabilities. For some people, they're better at writing or talking or either not working in their native language, or their brain thinks like a spreadsheet, not with feelings, or it thinks like feelings and not a spreadsheet. And like, whatever you need to do. And so that like how you learn, how to keep you motivated, how to like figure out what you need. And so having sort of an AI that can sort of, it's like the world's best coach, assistant, helper that, you know, billionaires with like personal staffs can have this already. And like the CEO has a chief of staff and all these people that do these, prepares their meetings and everything. But now we can sort of all get that, which allows us to all sort of be able to do our best work in the way that's like, you know, most fulfilling for us and most best activates us. And so these kinds of things, by the way, these are here today. Like to your point, you know, you're doing this today. People are using, you know, LLMs to like, even if you have like, if you're not confident, and you know, like I made a GPT for my manager, and I've put in like just information about her, and like there's certain books she recommends, and like so it's like if there's something I want to send to her and I want her like response, I'll send to the GPT first and be like, hey, what like questions might she ask me about this? And so then I can make sure like, okay, that's covered, or ooh, I should add this in here too. So it helps give me the confidence to maybe like send the email a little bit sooner, and maybe that like helps me not like think all night like ruminating on it, you know. I'm like, oh, because so there's these different ways even in that where it kind of helps us with wherever we're lacking and can really support what we're trying to do. And that's here today. We don't have to wait for that, which is to me a very, very cool use of AI.
That's fascinating. So, look, gents, I could keep going for hours on this. I know both of you certainly could. So, but I do think we're probably being called to time. So let me finish with something quite strong from you guys. Then I want both your opinions. What is one practical change that you think is going to hit the end user compute space in the next maybe 12 to 18 months?
That's a good question, Chris. That's a very good question. I think I kind of hinted on this with my chain of thought earlier on, but I think the practical use that we're going to see is remote desktop workers, the ability to use our existing VDI infrastructure with the tooling being created by vendors to be able to automate desktop environments, automate tasks using the VDI infrastructure of today as a looking glass to allow AI workers to interface and use the tooling that we have available. Like we are seeing applications that allows people to use my desktop, but I'm using my desktop. So you can go use that desktop over there inside this VDI infrastructure to be able to better facilitate that. And I think platforms like Citrix are going to enable AI worker administrators of the future to be able to better utilize that tooling, to be able to have a cluster of 10 VDIs completing 10 tasks sequentially.
Yeah, all as you. I mean, I would just add, you know, an underscore to everything you said. I agree completely. You know, I wrote a blog post. We talk about computer using agents, the agents that can actually navigate your browser or your desktop. I wrote a blog post. They're getting better and better. Like they can't do everything yet. They still get confused sometimes, but there are benchmarks that sort of track their progress. So far, they can do about 45%. There's a basket of tasks that make up these benchmarks, and the agents can do about 45% successfully today. The leading agents, humans only do 72 to 74%. So it's not like human, because not every human knows how to do everything. But the thing is, 45% today, not that good. But at the beginning of the year, it was 17%. You know, last summer it was 6%. So you know, within the next 12 to 18 months, these are going to be 100%. It doesn't mean AI takes your job. That just means that AI is able to like kind of do everything it needs to do within a desktop or workspace environment. And which means I'll be able to tell it like, oh, go do this, do my mail, like you have to tell it like what to do, but it'll be able to understand like, okay, how that navigates on the screen. So I think, you know, we're going to see in the next 12 to 18 months, like we'll have like agent IDs. Microsoft already announced this in Entra ID. There's like a new AI agent like security principle, because I don't want my agent logging on as like Brian.Madden@Citrix, because like it's not me. But it should have the same permissions as me, but maybe like tighter guardrails. So I think the idea that we have like identities for our agents that act on our behalfs that log into our workspaces, probably in a VDI environment, they're probably connecting. Maybe the models are probably not running on that server. the models are probably using HDX just like humans use HDX. And whether that's a Windows-based VDI desktop, maybe it's just a Chrome browser in a container, because I don't actually use Windows myself. Everything is in Chrome in my world. And I think that's here in the next 12 to 18 months is we have AI computer using agents actively logging on to corporate workspaces and performing tasks without supervision on behalf of the workers. And I think even getting to the point where they're using A2A, the agent to agent, to talk to other agents. Like my agent talks to my coworker agent, or the fact that agents are like on my inbox and picking up tasks that they know they can do, and like doing these things for me. It's gonna be the basic level, but I believe very strongly that we have that in the next 12 to 18 months. I mean, a lot of people are saying that 18 months, that goes to the end of 2026 into 2027. Yep. And a lot of timelines for like very, very, very capable and powerful AI is in that world. So like the next 12 to 18 months, a lot's happening.
Love that. A lot to watch out for, and a lot for you to obviously keep on top of. So fair play. There's a lot of work there. So look, Brian, Stefan, thanks a lot for your insight today. It's been incredible, and thanks everyone for watching, tuning in, listening, and subscribing. Keep an eye out, obviously, for our next episode dropping soon. And thanks a lot for your time, guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.